The NHO Show.
You got that pressure.
NHO Show back just prior to the trade deadline, just post the gold medal women's hockey game, and getting through February one day at a time.
Yeah, a beautiful spring day in February today. I mean, probably doesn't bode well for the planet and all, but it was nice to get out, and means that spring's on its way, and that means NHL playoffs are on their way, and like you said, trade deadline, and a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I was walking home. I was walking home today, or walking to an appointment today around like 4:30, and I was like, I am so excited for it to start getting warm again. This will be really, really, really nice. Please get warm again. Thank you. I'm cold and I'm tired and I'm sick of not seeing the sun all the time. And I just want to ride my bike. I just want to be outside and not freeze to death. That's all. That's all I want. Little things in life.
So let's start it off. I'd say with the hottest topic in hockey right now, and that was the women's gold medal game, which sounds like we both stayed up to watch. I
think most people stayed up to watch it, even if they weren't big into hockey. I think it's everyone just stays up to watch gold medal hockey in the Olympics, no matter what. It's just kind of Canadians. It's just sort of ingrained in you. It's just gonna happen. And everyone was a little bit tired the next day. It's fine.
Give me Storie's initial reaction of the gold medal game. Shootout win for the United States.
You and I have talked about this before as it relates to World Juniors. No final gold medal game should ever be decided in a shootout.
Absolutely.
Unless you're the IIHF who makes the rules, I can't think of a single person who agrees with that rule.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. And the thing that was really weird that I've never seen before, mostly because I don't think I can recall, or at least I can't really remember a game except for 2002 maybe, a game going into multiple rounds of shootouts. And I'm not convinced, or at least I'm hopeful, that if the Americans didn't get to go back-to-back in that shootout with the second round of the shootout, Canada would have had a better shot at winning. That's completely ridiculous. Like, so initial impressions, that whole shootout idea and shootout, the way it's laid out and the way it's organized is completely unfair to players at that level.
Yeah, I obviously agree with you. I think it's funny that you mentioned that point about them after it went the first round and it went to sudden death, that they got to shoot twice, and I wasn't sure if the rule on that. Did Team Canada choose for them to go first?
No. It's a rule I looked it up today. It's a rule in the IIHF's rule book. That's how it goes. In overtime, you have a coin toss to decide who shoots first, and the winner of that coin toss gets to decide if they want to shoot first or second. So last night Canada chose to shoot first.
Right.
In the second round of a shootout. And so in that first round, you have to have different shooters. You have to have 5 different shooters. In the second round of the shootout, you switch the order from the first round. So in last case, U.S. goes first, which means they shoot back-to-back. But you can have you can have repeat shooters just go and go and go. You don't have to have another 5 different shooters, which I think in the NHL you have to. You end up going through the whole line of shooters if you go into like crazy shootout rounds.
Yeah, NHL is different. Yeah, in double IHF you can repeat shooters, but that seems like a very strange rule to throw in there. Like, I guess I'm trying to think the reasoning behind it. Like, maybe to make it fair that the one team gets to, the power to end it if the other team misses, but you got to think it throws the goalie's rhythm off.
Yeah, they don't get that break. They don't get to see. Rounds. Yeah, they've already done 5 rounds. You can change the goaltender, but like, what's that going to do? You're not going to do that. You're not going to put a cold goaltender into a shootout.
No,
that's not happening. So yeah, I mean, you don't give the goaltender a chance to refocus, think about what they're doing. And it was even funny because Megan Augusta, after that second round, she went onto the ice and got sent back to the bench.
Right.
In lieu of the American shooter.
Yeah. And she was ready to go, all pumped up, and like I said, like timing for goaltending is everything, and rhythm, and to go 5 rounds and then have to just get another shot. Yeah, I didn't know that is a strange rule.
It's messed up.
I mean, yeah. That being said, though, like, I think I'm going to have an unpopular opinion on the game, at least from a Canadian standpoint, and the girls on the team are probably going to hate me for saying this if I ever run into them. But first of all, I think the U.S. deserved to win.
Yes.
I do think, though, that, like you said, if it didn't go to a shootout, I think we would have won because, I mean, the announcers said, "Oh, I like our chances because we have Zabados," and I was kind of thinking that too, but I would prefer the better goal. Like, in a one-on-one situation, anything can happen. And the U.S. I think has more talented, are deeper up front in the fact that they could throw out more talented forwards to score. So if it went like double overtime or whatever, I like Zabados' chances of holding us in the game and shutting the door, and then us scoring like a garbage goal more than I like the one-on-one shootout scenario. So, but other than that, so I think U.S. deserve to win, and I actually think it's a good thing overall for both women's hockey, for the Canadian women's hockey program, and for obviously the U.S. women's hockey program that the U.S. won. And I only say that because I didn't realize until they pointed this out last night again that Canada hasn't lost a game in the Olympics in women's hockey for 20 years, since Nagano. So it's one of those things that we've talked about before when talking about women's hockey, and how like the skill level is so vastly different from top to bottom, and it's so disheartening for those countries that are trying to get there to just never win. So, and especially the U.S. women's team got cut all their funding because of this as well. Even though every game they play is like a 1-goal game and it's a coin flip of who wins, we just have always come out on top for 20 years. But so it was nice to see the women on the U.S. team get a little vindicated because they finally got the funding. And it's very rare that in any sport, Canadian players or athletes get funded more than U.S. athletes, especially with the Olympics. And that is the case in women's hockey. So they felt like they were second rate and they had to fight for their funding. They got it. And I think it's good for the game to grow, because if you want the women's game to grow, it's got to grow in the U.S. It's like the men's game. That's why we have teams in Arizona and Florida when no one is going to the game, because we need to get those markets interested. And from a Canadian perspective, I think it's good because you need to fail to improve. You know what I mean? Like, you can't win all the time because you're just going to remain idle. You stagnate. And I think it's a learning experience. Like, all the returning players on that team already have a gold medal, and all the rookies that were there, I'm sure will win a gold medal in their lifetime. So I hope so for their case, but I don't think it's too detrimental as far as their careers and their hopes and dreams. I think they'll be fulfilled one day. But like I said, you don't learn anything from winning all the time, and I think it's a good kind of gut check for Team Canada too, because like we talked about, they got outplayed. They didn't really deserve to win. I also don't think I think the coach made some questionable decisions, Laura Schuler. Just because she started benching players in like the middle of the second period, and you need to trust the players that you brought, and trust the roster that got you there, because it was clear that the Canadian players, like our top end girls like Poulin and Jenner, and they were running out of gas in the overtime game, and these girls aren't professional athletes. They don't like do this for a living all the time, and and it's so rare that they play such a high intensity game like that. They play it like once every 4 years, so once it drags on, they're obviously going to hit a wall. And you could tell, like, I forget her first name, but Nurse, she had legs going. Like, some of the rookies had legs going when they're given an opportunity, and I think she didn't play those players enough. And then they almost lost it in the last like minute when they're on the power play, because she benched I think it was Roquette, who was playing on the power play. She hadn't played since the middle of the second. She's out there in the last minute on the power play to try to win the game, and she bobbles the puck and almost went down to the other end. So
yeah, there was a lot of talk about that. That was probably the most questionable decision that the coach made that whole game, was to put Bridget Laquette, who isn't fast. Like, she's a rookie, but she's not that fast, but she's got a cannon of a shot. So kind of I think that was the reasoning, is like get her out on the ice and get that shot in for that last ditch effort. But it wasn't, but yeah, she hadn't played all game, and she's cold, and she gets out on the ice and she's terrified. I would be.
It's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. We're going to send you out in the last minute of overtime, basically so you can win this game for us. No pressure, but nobody else can skate right now. And she was terrified. Like,
Yeah.
She was, it was pure nerves. And, like, you can't send a rookie out to an overtime, 1 minute left in overtime for their gold medal and expect them to do well. Like, it's not Bridget Laquette's fault. It's the scenario, and that overtime period though was one of the hardest overtime periods to watch. Just watching Canada get steamrolled left, right, and center. It's like, what? Did you guys just put weights in your skates? Like, what is going on? But it's I think it also comes down to Canada's an older team. A lot of veteran players are on their team. A lot of players who are probably looking at this as, their second last Olympics, if they make it to another 4 years. And the U.S. team is young. They're young and hungry, and they haven't they haven't had to feel defeat against the Canadians for the most part, ever. So they don't go in there upset, and they don't go in there sad, or like they don't go in there expecting to lose. They go in there expecting to win, and that's what they did. And they kept their heads on straight. They played really hard all game, and it shows, and it showed. And you can't rely. We see this so much in NHL teams. You can't rely on your goalie to save you, and especially in the overtime period, they were completely relying on Shannon Zabados to save them. So it's like if it had gone into double overtime, the outcome would have been the same.
Yeah, likely. And like we've obviously mentioned a lot of the star Canadian women that have brought us glory, but like I think we should recognize the U.S. women that are obviously super talented as well, like Hillary Knight, Decker, Amanda Kessel, Kendall Coyne. She's a speedster. Like they have a lot of really good players on that team. So I wouldn't it's not, should never be ashamed to lose to a good team, and it's not like Canada lost it themselves. They got outplayed, but that's why, like you said, like they were on their heels after they got up 2-1, and US just kept coming and coming, and I just don't get why. It was clear that they were outmatching them with their speed, and when you have young girls, I know there's nerves and they might make a mistake, but if they're fresh, you got to throw them out. You got to push the pace and keep the pace up with those kind of skaters. But yeah, like I said, it was a tough loss, but at the end of the day, I wasn't even like really as upset as I thought I would be, just because obviously it was a shootout, and and just because like we've had so much success that I was kind of happy for the U.S. girls. Like I'm glad that they finally got one, and I think we'll be better for it in Team Canada going forward. So yeah,
I think that's a nice outlook, and I think to your point of growing the game in the U.S. and creating more opportunities for U.S. players is right on point. I think that's a great idea.
One last thought from me at least on the game last night, and I think just in women's hockey in general, and I think you'll like this. So we talked about last week about how I played with Brianne Jenner, right?
Oh right. And
I think like she might be my new favorite female hockey player because I thought she was probably our best player last night. Poulin was really good too because she was super aggressive and everything, but Brianne Jenner has like I was gonna tell you that I think she's kind of like the Mark Scheifele of women's hockey.
Oh,
that's the type of style I think she plays, and yeah, I'm excited for the day that I get to, like, if I have a granddaughter, to be like, I played with Brianne Jenner. You know what I mean? So that's pretty cool.
There you go.
That's what I was thinking about last night.
There you go. Brianne Jenner, possible future GM.
I would say she's probably the next captain. Like, I don't know what the age difference is between her and Poulin, but she's already got an A on her chest, right? So if Poulin's not around, if she sticks it out a little longer, I think she'll get the C. You know who disappointed me pretty bad was Spooner.
Yeah.
So I was pumping her tires. She didn't have a goal all tournament, so that's just not really good enough. Someone you need to produce, rely on. So,
which is crazy because when you watch Spooner play with the Toronto Furies, like, she is on fire, and she's defensive and she's aggressive and she loves to score. But you're right. Yeah, Spooner really didn't. I don't know if maybe she was giving more of a leadership role to Poulin, just because she's like, you've got the C, this is your team to lead, I'm going to be here for you, but I don't need to take on as much of a leadership role. But that veteranship and that veteran knowledge and experience would have come, I think the team would have, the rookies at least, would have benefited a lot from kind of Spooner stepping up a little bit more.
Yeah. You know what I think it was? I think it was the big ice. Spooner's like a power forward type, kind of like, Corey Perry. I think she's a little better skater than Corey Perry comparatively. But I think she was just that big ice. She was just a step behind a few times. She had a couple nice chances, but she definitely, I think, prefers to play on a smaller rink and tighter quarters where she can be more physical and kind of play her game that way. But I'll take a second to recognize a few of the other women that really impressed me last night, like Daou.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that shootout move for one, and I thought she was dangerous all night for us. Fortino on defense, Laura Fortino, I think might be the most like under talked about, or least talked about player on her team, and I think she's one of our best. Like, I sent out a tweet on our Twitter last night saying that she was reminding me of Duncan Keith in his prime, like just the way she skates, like her speed, her physicality, her little stick checks. They're subtle things, but she was just always on the right side of the player, especially in women's hockey when, like we've talked about, there's such a gray area with penalties. She just did everything right, in my opinion, last night. And I actually thought she was a favorite to score the goal for us in overtime. It was going to happen, but yeah. So they played well, but just came up a little short,
Yeah.
Can't win them all.
You can't. Women's hockey has come to a close. Men's hockey is still on the horizon. Semifinal game goes down Friday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. Excuse me. And then against Germany. So that'll be, I think everyone's kind of expecting Canada to win that one. And I believe the other two opponents are Russia and Czech Republic. So, out of that, you're probably going to see Russia come out on top. So we could see a Canada-Russia final.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone's kind of hoping for, at least from the Canadian perspective. Because, although I will say this, the Czechs have played I haven't been able to watch them, but seems like they're playing well right now, so I wouldn't be totally shocked if they upset Russia. But like you said, I think Germany, Canada, it's a should-win game for Team Canada.
Which is crazy to me. Like, when would you ever go Germany? I'm Canadian and I'm going to cheer for Team Canada, but like, way to go Germany! Like, I am impressed.
Well, yeah, we talk about growing the game a lot, right? And it's things like this and countries doing well that aren't usually in the medal round and that you need to grow the game. So it's just good things for hockey worldwide moving forward.
Great things.
And the Germans have had success in the past. Like, they've got NHL players, right? So
yep.
I'm not completely shocked by Germany doing well.
There you go. All right, well, Olympic coverage continues. The next time we do a podcast, we will know who took home gold. Maybe it's Czech Republic and Germany for gold.
Imagine.
Who knows? I mean, and if that happens, like, psh, I don't even care what happens after that.
Yeah. I was going to say, the ratings probably wouldn't be great.
I don't even know what the ratings are right now.
Yeah.
Especially making me get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get ready for a game.
Yeah. I think the gold medal game's Saturday night, though, at 11. So it's a good time for everyone to watch. Everyone will be done watching their Leaf Hockey Night in Canada. And
I was literally about to say, it's like it'll be on right after the Leafs and the Bruins. Yeah. Life is good.
If you're not a fan of a West Coast team, then you got that as a doubleheader. So it's a good night to have it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So speaking of things that are coming up, and once we do this podcast next week, we will have trade deadline will have come and gone. So a couple of trades have happened in the last few days. Nothing really mind-blowing yet. Everyone is still sitting here being like, when is Karlsson going to get traded? We're all ready for you to get traded, Karlsson. We're just waiting. Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of chatter, though, obviously. Rick Nash and Michael Grabner are likely to get traded tonight, I would say, because they are both healthy scratches. So, I mean, it might just be a precautionary thing, but definitely there's deals that are close. Or otherwise, those guys would be in the lineup. So, Rangers are going to be busy. One of the bigger, I guess, trades that have happened was the Darcy Kemper to Arizona that happened last night, I believe. And it was a strange trade in my mind for the Arizona Coyotes, and for a guy that was pretty highly touted coming in as a GM, John Chaika, and I thought he made a lot of good moves in the offseason to make Arizona look competitive. Obviously, they didn't get the start they wanted, but I thought it was a strange move, and he's made a few questionable decisions in his short tenure. So obviously, I mean, he's a young guy. He's only 28, so it's a steep learning curve. But they kind of just traded for a backup goalie, and like the Kings got Tobias Ryder and a replacement backup goalie, so they basically got Tobias Ryder for free. And every goalie that's been in the LA system has kind of performed his best in the LA because of their great defense and defensive structure that they're just known for. So I'm not sure. I mean, I like Darcy Kemper, but I don't think I think he's an average backup, and I don't get why you give up real assets like Tobias Ryder, who's a very effective top 9 forward. You can play on your penalty kill. He's kind of been not producing as much offense as he maybe should or was once thought that he could, but I think a change of scenery will be good for him. And yeah, it struck me as an odd move. Florida traded for Frank Vatrano out of Boston. I haven't been following the Bruins super close. Obviously, they're doing well, and I thought he was part of their success, but obviously he hasn't been. And they traded a third rounder for him. So there's been a few little deals, but yeah, like you said, there's a lot of chat around Erik Karlsson and a lot more action in the last kind of dying minutes, I think, of the deadline approaching them than we both anticipated. So.
Absolutely. Trade deadline is usually a hurry up and wait kind of scenario where the whole day there's all this pomp and circumstance and fanfare around a show. and around a day that is basically arbitrary because you can do anything you want to do prior to the deadline. It just means that at a certain time on the day of the deadline, you can't trade anymore. And that's basically until the end of the season. So that's basically all that happens. And in previous years, you kind of have been sitting around being like, please, somebody get traded so we can talk about something. And you get a whole bunch of these little tiny things that are boring to talk about. But yeah, I think this year might be the year where a couple of really big players get traded at the deadline, hopefully on Mondays. It'd be nice to have TV stuff to talk about. But yeah.
What do you think about Erik Karlsson and getting traded? Like, do you think that's a wise move for the Sens or what? Because we kind of touched on it last week, but
yeah,
it's a real possibility.
I think it opens. I think the Sens need to really, really restructure and rethink and just break it down. And same thing, kind of like what the Canucks are doing, is they just got to break it down and purge. And Karlsson is such a great player, but as you mentioned last year, he hasn't been the same all season. I think he's got to go somewhere. You know what? He's really reminding me of like a PK scenario where he didn't really feel super, welcome and super appreciated by the team in Montreal, and I feel like Karlsson's kind of in the same boat right now with Ottawa. I'd like to see Karlsson go somewhere where he can actually have an opportunity to win and be surrounded by players who are at the same level as he is.
Yeah, it's just it's pretty crazy to think that they were like a goal away from going to the Stanley Cup final last year. Obviously, make that big trade for Matt Duchene earlier in the year, thinking they're like, oh, we're going to contend. And now we're a few months later, and they're thinking about trading their like franchise player.
Yeah.
And obviously, and I think you did mention that relationships have kind of been strained, and again, I think that boils down to ownership and Eugene Melnyk. And
I think ever since Eugene Melnyk was so anti-Olympics, it's been over for Karlsson. He's like, and Karlsson was so mad. Sorry, I think it's just been over for them. They're done. And now with Eugene Melnyk stepping into taking on more of a leadership role and more of a hands-on role with the team, it's like, no. I think Karlsson's just had it. And he's done.
And I wonder if they kind of know or are more concerned about their injury or his injury or his recovery from his injury than most of the other league is aware of, because their trainers know and they see him every day. So I think they know that right now it's probably the most value they're going to get for him, because if a team gets him now, they have him for 2 playoff runs at the very least. I mean, he could re-sign there and be there for a while, but that teams will have to pay a premium for that, rather than if they wait till the off season or next season, and they'll just get him for that season and then the playoffs before he's a free agent. So I think they want to maximize his value, and I do believe, I think it's pretty obvious that Tampa Bay is one of the front runners to get him, just because they have such a deep prospect pool filled with some really good prospects, and they have the assets to get him. But I'm wondering, if I am Tampa Bay, if it's really worth it for me to try to make that big of a shakeup right now before the playoffs, just because there's a good chance that they could win the cup without him. You know what I mean? If they maybe add a few little things here and there, and then if you know that you can win without him, then you don't even worry about trading for him next year. You know what I mean? And you save yourself a whole bunch of cap space, because I think they have a good enough team, and then you save all your prospects, and you're good for longer rather than going all in for a year or two. So that's definitely a hot topic situation to watch, but yeah, it's just crazy, the 180 that Ottawa's done. And I mean, as a Colorado fan, it's great because they have their first round pick, and if they trade Erik Karlsson next year, they're not going to be good, and then Matt Duchene probably leaves, and as Leafs fans, we love seeing Ottawa crash and burn, So.
Yeah. I think Matt Duchene needs to get the fuck out of Ottawa as soon as he possibly can.
Oh, I can't see him re-signing there if they're going to go into rebuild mode.
No.
That's the reason he asked for a trade out of Colorado. So Like he'll definitely walk as a free agent, I'd say, if they don't trade him at the deadline next year. So it'll be an interesting situation, Star.
It will be. It will be.
But yeah, a lot of big deals are going to happen, it seems, up until the deadline. And I'm like kind of curious that maybe I'll have to wait for your dominoes to fall. Like it's crazy that Grabner and Nash are going to be like the first kind of players to go, maybe because they're going to be a little cheaper. But I thought Max Pacioretty would be traded by now, and I'm kind of curious. Like his name hasn't been out there that much lately.
Yeah.
I wonder if he does end up getting traded. Maybe it waits to the off season. So I don't know. But Montreal has phoned it. Like their season's done. Weber's out for the year. Carey Price is out indefinitely right now. So I think they're just in full on tank for Rasmus Dahlin mode, and it makes sense for them to get rid of him. But I definitely thought there'd be more chatter around Max because he's my number one target if I'm a contender.
Absolutely, and that'd be that's an interesting thing too that we haven't actually talked about is where does Rasmus Dahlin go?
Oh yeah.
Who would he fit with? Based on like if the draft lottery was tomorrow or next week, where does he go? What team would he be solid in?
It's more like what team would you like want him to be on? Like because if we're looking at the bottom, the teams with the best chances to get him, like say bottom 5 to 10, we've got the usual suspects like Arizona, Buffalo, Ottawa's third last right now. Edmonton's in there, Vancouver, Montreal. So there's a good chance he goes to a Canadian team. The bottom 6, 4 of them are Canadian teams. And then Detroit, obviously. But yeah, like where do you want Dahlin to end up? You know what?
I rarely ever. I feel like maybe Edmonton would be a solid move for him. I think he's a player. I think him and McDavid would have really good chemistry. They're both fast and they can do things on the ice that are unheard of and never been seen before. That would probably be my top pick. Would be Edmonton.
I'd probably tend to agree with you there. But like at the same time, it's so unfair that Edmonton just always gets. I mean, I guess it's because they've been shit, but. They just always get the first overall pick.
Oh, man, if they get the first overall pick, everyone's still going to be like, oh, come on. What? They can't get it again. It's like, no, that's why it's called a draft lottery.
But then they say, oh, it's fixed,
Oh, it's fixed. Yeah, sure. Whatever you want to think it is. It's totally fixed. It's definitely gone in Edmonton's favor a few times. Great. Deal with it. Suck it up, princess. Like, come on.
But yeah, with like Connor McDavid and then the Connor McDavid of defense, basically.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember a defenseman being this hyped. So that would be a little unfair. And as a fan of a Western team, I'm not sure I do want that, but it would be a lot of fun to watch as a fan of hockey in general.
Yeah, I think it might give a little bit of like pep in the step of the Oilers. Might give them a little bit more just kind of excitement and a little shake things up a little bit, give them something to get excited about.
Yeah, it would definitely like justify this terrible season that they're having. I don't think they would end up being too mad about it in the long run. But honestly, of all those teams down there, because I don't want Montreal to get him at all. Don't want Vancouver to get him really, just because I'm not a big Vancouver fan. Ottawa, no way. Buffalo, like, nah. Arizona has the best chance right now, and I think it would be good for the NHL and obviously for Arizona for them to get him, because he might be finally that guy that can start to turn that franchise around, and we need to have, like, they probably will be in serious threat of having to relocate in a few years if these losing ways continue. So Arizona's probably my top pick at the moment.
There we go.
There you go.
Another thing we didn't talk about, and we haven't actually... We sort of talked about this a few weeks ago with New York sending out that letter to all their fans. And I think we talked a little bit about transparency, and we kind of... I can't quite recall where we left our opinion of the letter. But basically, it was a letter that the Rangers sent out to their fans being like, yeah, we're going to tank, so bear with us. Stick with us. It's going to be a crappy few years, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And I think actually I liked the letter, having been a Maple Leafs fan for so long. Like, I would appreciate the letter. It's like, I understand. Yes, if the Leafs had sent everybody a letter or posted a letter or whatever, saying, when in their dark years, saying, I know it sucks right now. Stick with us. It's going to get better. We'll get better in a few years. For those fans who are kind of, the wishy-washy fans, the ones who only show up when you're winning, I feel like it might have kept those ones around a little bit longer, where it's like, well, okay, they're not winning now, but I know they'll win again, and that'll be nice. I can hang on a little bit. So I feel like that's kind of what New York did in a way. But what's interesting and something that is just kind of curious is that there was an NBA coach that got fined $600,000 for saying his team was tanking on purpose, or just tanking, like that they were going to tank.
Yeah,
and that's the decision that they made. $600,000. Players in hockey go and run somebody into the boards and give them a concussion and get like $40,000. like a fine of $40,000, or there's some disciplinary action, they get fined $20,000, it goes into the Department of Player Safety. That's it. That's all that happens. They get maybe a game, whatever. This coach, literally just for saying our team's gonna tank, it's fine, basically, gets fined $600,000. There's zero precedent for that. And then the New York Rangers go and send out this letter saying, we're going to tank, stick with us, we're going to lose, it's going to be a crappy season. And nothing happens to them.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I think what it is, I'm not sure. I don't think, does the NBA have a draft lottery? Do you know? NBA is like probably the last sport I know the least about, but
yeah, I can't remember off the top. I don't think they have a draft. I don't think it's a draft lottery. I think it's just like based on standings.
Yeah, so that's a little different, and that's, I guess, why the NHL instituted the draft lottery in the first place. So even if a team did say that, like, that's why it's not as bad as New York saying, oh, we're going to make some changes and change the direction of the franchise, because even if they do come last, like Colorado did last year, they had a historically bad year, still picked 4th overall, right? Not number 1. So no one's guaranteed, Darlene. And I think that makes a little bit of difference. But like I said, obviously the wording and change the direction of the franchise and using the word tank, like as soon as you use the word tank, I think you're going to be in trouble in any sport. So if he came out and said, like, we want to lose and we're losing on purpose, then that's a problem. Like, you can do it subtly, like the Leafs did when they got Austin Matthews. Like, that's what I was telling the friend that I had that bet with, that the Leafs would make the playoffs in the next 2 years before last year, because I said they're intentionally being bad right now. You know what I mean? They have the resources to be good. They just don't want to be, because they want that high draft pick. And lo and behold, they get Austin Matthews. And so, I mean, you have to do it strategically. I think it happens in every sport, but you just can't be, you got to word it right. You can't be too vocal about it. But that's pretty funny, though.
Yeah. That was an interesting fact.
Yeah.
A little interesting fact there. All right. Well, who do you think, a trade deadline is coming up in a few days. Who do you think is going to get traded? What are your thoughts on, does Erik Karlsson go before the deadline, or does he go in the off season? What do you think? Tweet us at the NHO Show. You can also join the trade deadline chat by using hashtag NHL Trade. And we'll be covering the trade deadline as it goes through the day, as it leads up. And what are your most? Here's another question for those of you who listen. What are your most memorable trades of years past?
It's a good one.
Let
me just say that I sent a post out about like 10 trades that made sense earlier this week. And
yes.
I posted it on like like this hockey forum, and got absolutely roasted by a lot of people, which I found pretty funny. And people, I get it. People are passionate about their prospects and what have you, but I think people tend to overrate them as well. But yeah, it was just a funny response. I mean, I think Elliot Friedman came out and said it's turning more into a buyer's market rather than selling, and that seems to be the case because no one's really been moved yet. And I took it as the opposite with all the teams in the running, and I think the domino effect when one team makes a move, another team will have to respond. So I think a few of them the prices were a little high, but at the end, it's just funny how love the response. Got a lot of views and people being passionate about what I was saying. But fun fact story, we had, because you can look at stats and everything.
Yeah.
We had someone from Trinidad and Tobago.
What?
And from Poland check out the site. So you guys are listening. I appreciate that, and stick around.
Welcome. Hello. I will learn how to say hello in Polish for next episode.
Although I think maybe the Trinidad and Tobago person might just be someone who's like hiding their IP address, and
okay, don't ruin it.
Saying it.
Stop ruining it.
Well, that they need to get that good Trinidad and Tobago Netflix. It's got great programming.
Thank you for ruining the slight bit of happiness that you were giving me. Yeah, way to go.
Well, speaking on the point of Trinidad and Tobago, I guess, why don't we shift gears? And you had another story that you wanted to share about Black History Month.
I do.
Black Hockey History.
I do. So February, we've said this before, and I'll say it again. February is Hockey is for Everyone month. So, go out there. Please support your LGBTQ plus athletes. It is so incredibly important. But it is also Black History Month, and it is warranted to go and cover and talk about some of the Black players that never played in the NHL and that led the way for players like Willie O'Ree to break the color barrier in professional hockey. And last week I told a story that by Frank Mahovlich about him growing up in Timmins. There were 3 players on a line in Timmins that played at the MAC, which was the arena there. And there were 3 Black players. And a young Frank Mahovlich, future Leaf star, watching this game, his first game he ever watched, he thought that when he made it to the NHL, he was going to play with a whole bunch of Black guys. That was in 1942. Lo and behold, he makes it to the NHL, and there isn't a single Black guy to be found. So one of those guys who played on that line was Herb Carnegie. And Herb Carnegie was potentially the greatest player to never play in the NHL. He was a player, he was born to Jamaican immigrants, grew up in Toronto, found his love for hockey on the outdoor ponds, listening to Foster Hewitt, and he really had this dream of playing in the NHL. And I don't think that growing up, he necessarily thought, I'm not going to get to play because I'm Black. His dad was very aware of that. He's like, no, there's no way you're going to play. But he just kept going and kept playing and kept playing and kept trying. This kid was fast. He had great stick handling, and ended up finding a spot as a young 18-year-old with the Toronto Young Rangers. And so he's practicing with the Toronto Young Rangers, and lo and behold, Conn Smythe hears about this kid who's really good and really fast, and Conn Smythe comes to a practice. And he was impressed. You couldn't not be impressed with this guy based on how he played. But Conn Smythe was, despite all of his impressiveness and despite him being, saying, yeah, I want this kid, but he just couldn't take, and this is a line, and it was later told by Red Story, who's an iconic referee. Conn Smythe was basically like, in a few other words, but basically, I can't take him because he's Black. I don't care how good this guy is. I don't care how good he will be. He's Black, and I can't take him. And he was even rumored to have been told to have said, "I will give $10,000 to the person who can turn him white." Now, keep in mind, that's a hard thing to hear. So I want to play a clip of Herb Carnegie actually reciting this story, because the way he tells it is incredible, and it was on Hockey Night in Canada, Canada's Inside Hockey back in 2009. So, and actually, coincidentally, young Elliot Freeman was leading this interview. But I want to play this interview because just the way that Herb recites the story as an 18-year-old, we'll just bring it to life. So here we go.
I was good enough for the Leafs. Because according to Conn Smythe, I would take Carnegie tomorrow for the Maple Leafs if someone can turn them white. Now, I got that statement when I was 18. How would you feel?
I feel awful.
I can't forget it. Because he cut my knees off. He broke my legs. It's horrible. So I don't want people to go through that. I can go back to that. The very moment when Ed Wilde had me at the side of the boards and telling me the story. I'm sorry.
Carnegie needed a few minutes, his daughter Bernice helping, before he could continue.
I love the game, and I feel cheated. I didn't get the chance to prove myself wrong. I just had a door closed where I couldn't participate.
It is a test.
So that's Herb.
Yeah, that is. That really, like you said, that really kind of brings it to life and makes it hit home, because you can obviously hear the emotion in his voice and how devastated he was by it. And I mean, rightfully so. Like, it's crazy to think that that's how the world was, and I mean, in some places still is. And it's timing in life is everything. I've come to realize with a lot of different things, and it's just too bad that his timing was just off. He was just too early to the game, because who knows, maybe he wins the Stanley Cup with the Leafs, you know? Maybe he brings more glory to the Maple Leafs, and maybe he's revered as a legend. If only people could look past, like, skin deep, you know? It's just sad.
Yeah, and Herb's story continues past that day. So he continued to play, and then in 1948, while he was playing with the Sherbrooke Saints, the New York Rangers. So this is 10 years before Willie O'Ree would step foot on the ice as the first black player. The New York Rangers offer him a contract, but the contract was about half of what he was getting paid with the Sherbrooke Saints. And they were going to send him to a team called the Rockets, which was lower than the AHL. It was a step below the AHL at the time. And Carnegie said no. No, he had 3 kids at that point, and he said no.
Yeah.
The next day, the Rangers come back and say, okay, how about we give you a little bit more money and you come play for the New Haven Ramblers, the AHL affiliate. But Carnegie was like, no. I'm good enough to play at the big show. And unless you're going to give me a contract to play at the big show, I'm not going to do it. So Jackie Robinson, on the baseball side, that's what he did. Jackie Robinson signed a contract, went to the minors for a year, and then came up into play in the majors. And I think that was probably a very calculated choice, because the MLB had to be very cautious of how they were going to introduce the league's first black player. And for the New York Rangers, they were going to do the exact same thing. They were going to send him down to the minors, have him prove himself in the minors, get a bunch of press around it. And then when he made his debut at the pro level, no one would be people would be less surprised. But Carnegie was just like, nah, I've got 3 kids and a wife, and I can't be that far from my family. And he never regretted it. He had a long, amazing life in hockey. He lived to be 92. He made a point of, once his pro career was over, to give back and create and be a philanthropist and inspire other people. So 10 years before Willie O'Ree set foot on the ice as the first black player, Herb Carnegie was the player that just never was. He was doing it.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that story, because that is news to me as well. So, like, obviously Willie O'Ree is a name that's pretty recognizable around the league, at least should be, and Carnegie isn't. I'm hearing of him as well. So it's a really interesting bit of history there, and from my own personal perspective, I don't blame him for turning down the Rangers at that point, because I think maybe if Conn Smythe and the Leafs took that route at first, he definitely would have signed on. But like you said, he was probably just too hurt. The relationship with the league was too severed at that point to make him uproot his whole life just to help them out. You know what I mean? So
absolutely.
So yeah.
Absolutely. So more great stories. As much as Black History Month and Hockey is for Everyone Month comes to a close in a little over a week, I feel like maybe this is stories of untold stories of the players that influenced the NHL but maybe necessarily didn't make it, are worth continuing on. And so if you have any great stories for those listeners out there that you think are worth sharing, or players that are worth highlighting who have influenced you or influenced the league, changed the face of the league, or a minor team, let us know. We love to learn more about the players that people don't hear, those names that you don't hear about every day.
The unsung heroes.
The unsung heroes of hockey. We want to talk about them.
Well, Story, that's all for me.
That's all for me too.
You want to touch on?
Nope, that's it. We head into full on Olympic final mode, trade deadline mode, and then what on earth are we going to talk about in March?
Playoff races and playoff matchups.
Ooh, okay.
And awards.
Oh, right. Those things.
Or at least our picks for the awards.
Our picks for the awards. Okay, so
a lot of exciting hockey coming up.
This is true. We'll shift gears in March towards a bit more playoff focus and World Championship focus, because that thing happens too.
Yeah, Memorial Cup's coming up as well, so
lots of strong prospects to watch. Mem Cup should be pretty exciting.
Always is. It's actually probably my favorite hockey tournament in the whole world.
There you go.
But
you're just gonna have to make a trip out to Regina.
Just because, for me, it's the hardest trophy in sports to win, because you have to beat 60 teams to get it. It's not just, and you have to go through as much as you would for a Stanley Cup final, but then you also have to play a tournament against 3 other teams that have already won their league. So it's incredibly hard to win. So yeah. Until then, though, stay tuned for on Monday, like we said, for trade deadline reaction and chatter and our kind of instant analysis of the trades. And other than that, we'll chat soon, and we'll see you next time.
That sounds great. And as we speak and as we sign off, I do believe there is a trade that may have just happened.
Oh.
Rumors are floating around.
Grabner to the Devils.
Yeah, Grabner.
Second pick and Igor Rykov. I'm not sure. I'm not too familiar. I'm not familiar with Rykov at all, but Devils get Grabner added to that speed with Taylor Hall and Nico Hischier, and they're going to be exciting team to watch. That's it's funny. Grabner doesn't have to move very far; just has to cross the bridge.
Those moves are always nice. It's like, yeah, I don't really. He probably doesn't have to sell his house.
You know what we'll check out for next time is how many trades the New Jersey Devils and New York Rangers have done in the history, because I can't imagine it being very many.
Oh. That's a stats question, Colin. Stats.
There you go. I'm looking at it.
Stats.
Grabner's gone to the Devils. You heard it here first. Probably not, though.
Definitely not. But if you did, that's great. Hi to our friends at Poland and Trinidad and Tobago. All right, that's enough. Tweet if you have any commentary, questions, things you want to tell us, how great we are, how terrible we are, whatever you like. Tweet us at the NHO Show. And you can check us out at the NHOshow.com. We're on Facebook at the NHO Show. We're really, really easy to find. So tweet us your comments. Tell us what you think. Agree, don't agree. Give us your trade insight. And tell us about your unsung heroes of hockey.
Awesome.
Until next time.
Take care.
You got that